to the December 5th Board of Selectmen's meeting. The meeting is being audio and video recorded and will be shown on local access cable and online. If you'd please stand and join me in pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And while you're standing, a brief moment of silence for President H.W. Bush, who recently passed. Thank you. Selectman Reyes will not be here tonight due to a medical procedure. I am told that she is doing well, though. First on the agenda, we have the continuation of the tax classification, so I'll entertain a motion to reopen.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and I'll now open it to the assessors. If
Yes,
guys wanna
thank you.
Start your meeting.
Right, the assessors would like to open this meeting. Being present are Assessor McCarthy, Assessor Smith, and Assessor Bunker. We're here tonight to meet with the selectmen regarding the FY19 tax classification hearing. The purpose here is to present our findings from our revaluation work done by our vendor to the selectmen in order that you set the tax rates for the town. You have in front of you, every year we present a handbook regarding the information needed for you to make your judgment on the tax rates. If you open up the cover page, it just says what I've just explained, the classification hearing purpose. Every town's required to do this every fiscal year to meet with the council or the selectmen in order to set the tax rate for a particular fiscal year. The next page, John puts the handbook together, and I'd like to put this in there just for one quick thought here. I see the pie chart, and we're allowed, our small community, with its excellent infrastructure and makeup of commercial, industrial, residential properties, we're allowed to, what they call classify and actually split the rate. We can do that because, as the pie chart shows, in West Bridgewater here for FY19, all residential properties made up about 68.5%, according to the pie chart. And the remaining three, commercial, industrial, personal property, make up the other, 27, 28%, or whatever it is, a little over 30% actually. And the Department of Revenue says that the standard rule is if your value basis on your commercial industrial is above 22%, then you're favorable to go ahead and have a split rate. So I like to bring it up every year because here in our small town, a lot of towns around us, like the Bridgewaters, East Bridgewater and Bridgewater, they're not afforded this because their tax base is mostly residential. We can do this again because we have that good commercial industrial base, so we're allowed to take some of the residential burden with that good base and put it on to the commercial and industrial properties. The next page, it's called property class valuation. And something that I like to point out, I've been doing this a long time, and the middle line, the last blue line in the middle of the page going across, it shows the total valuation of our community here. And it's kind of neat, the fact that I started way back when, and going along through the years, we've increased in value. And you can see on the far right, the total value in West Bridgewater for FY19 is $1,251,614,536. Now, I know it's not Newton or Cambridge, but we're getting up there, which is pretty good. A little community, like I said, with the infrastructure and everything else, the school system and such, it's a very favorable community, and this shows it that with 3,000 parcels that were over $1 billion, well over $1 billion. The next page has three colored graphs. The residential is blue, the middle, the commercial is the shaded red, and the industrial is yellow. This just shows you different values by the class. And if you want to look at the top, at the blue shaded graph, on the last three lines on the second column over, it says 2018. If you look at the third line down, it says the rate last year was $17.10. The average bill was $55.80, and the average assessment was $326, $324. That's the average assessment, $326,324 on a single-family home last year here in town. Then if you move to the right, you'll notice that, which, I'm not surprised, the average single-family home here in West Bridgewater went from the $326,000 up to $348,000, almost $349,000. That's an increase of almost 7% in 1 year. We had our vendor do a revaluation for FY mandated, and they do a little bit extra work when they come in and do that. And this is what they found, that the property values have increased, what I think, substantially. The commercial values, they went up. The commercial went up almost 5%, and the industrial, the average value went up like 13%. I'm not really sure why. There's only like 102 parcels, but maybe something came on. I'm not sure, but their increase was above the rest. But all in all, based on what I showed you before, the increase in value, the total value, our community is not doing too bad. The next page is what you're going to be concerned with tonight. And I apologize every year because we throw a lot at you with these numbers. This spreadsheet or graph in front of you is really required because it says to the selectmen, how do you want to shift that burden from the residential onto the commercial? And this is called what-if scenarios. What it allows you to do is take a certain percent of the residential and move it on to the commercial industrial. And if you look over, the one we're interested really here tonight is for the single-family homes. And we're interested in all of them, but the one you want to really look at is, because that's the predominant class of the town, is the single-family homes. At the top of the left-hand corner, in blue highlighted, it shows what we just talked about, the average value for this fiscal year of $348,965. Then what you have going down in the left-hand column of the blue shade, it shows that the shift at what you're going to vote on tonight. And it goes through each percentage. We start really at 130 because historically in this community, you've always gone above the 130. And then we go by 1%. And then if you read down to about halfway, at the CIP shift of 1.38, that's what you adopted last year. And I'll just go through this. Last year, if you look down the bottom of the blue shaded area, there's a gray shaded area. Last year, at the 1.38 shift, your average bill was $5,580, $5,580, and again, your average assessment was $326,300. This year, with the average assessment have gone up almost 7%, if you go to 1.38, the average bill will go up to $57.68. The rate comes down because of the value increase of $16.53, and the tax dollars go up on that average home at the 1.38 split of around $188. It's a decision. If you move over to the commercial that split, the potential bill is on the average commercial bill is $977. The bill is in the middle there at the 1.38, $27,015, and the rate's down a little bit, and the increase is about 1.5%. The industrial debt, it's a little higher. The average assessed value of $1,383,000. This is in the yellow shade now, left-hand column. At 1.38, the projected bill, the average assessed value for industrial would be $38,258. Same rate as a commercial, $27.65. The rate would be down a little bit, and the average bill would go up about almost 9%, $31.09. So like every year, you have a decision to make about how you want to shift that. Historically, you've been staying kind of right in the middle there. It's obviously up to yourself. That being said, you can see that from our increased values across the board that the community is doing well. Unfortunately, people say, geez, the values went up, the rates went down. How come why are my taxes going up? Because under 2.5, we get to raise the levy from the previous year to 2.5% or up to that, plus our growth. The growth this year for 19 was a little bit less, so I'm surprised than last year. It was almost 445,000. Last year was a little bit more, so the growth did come down. I'm surprised where the economy is and such, but that's probably an indication that we had a bunch of single families come on for FY18. But still, the 440 is certainly good for our community. And I'm hoping in the future, if we aggressively try to get TIF community properties in here and such, we keep that growth going. So I leave it to you, the selectmen, to ask any questions or what you got to do regarding the on that rate split.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Belden, do you have any questions? or
No, I
anything?
just said the valuation went up 7%. I pretty well know where I feel we should do. I think we should stay with the same 1.38.
I agree. I think that we shift a decent amount currently from residential to commercial and industrial, and I think we're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, they're already showing an increase because of the valuation. I mean, you know, and how much can we put on the load, and especially residents, you know, they're getting, you know, I'd like to be fair with everybody, but I would,
Yeah.
if there's no other questions, I would make a motion of 1.38, stay with the same split.
I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
All set?
All set.
Okay, so the board will, this
138.
meeting with us is over,
Hand back
okay?
there.
Yeah, go ahead. John.
You're
Oh, I'm
up.
sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, John.
just two items. The Board of Assessors are required to notify the Department of Revenue that you have been notified of the current excess capacity of $1,955,175,000. Excuse me, $175. That's number one. And number two, I put a request into the town administrator asking for your authorization to allow me to sign your names electronically on the DOR tax rate, so that I can submit that this evening.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion out of that.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
John, I have one question for you. Do you happen to know how other towns stand in terms of how much they have left in their levy limit? 2 million sounds pretty good. Do you know how that compares?
That's very good. Many communities are right up to their levy capacity.
Right,
It's not unusual. I would say it's probably the norm.
right, they use
Most
it,
close
right,
to their capacity,
right.
which is why the legislature increased it from 1.5 to 1.75 for local adoption, to allow those communities that are maxed out
Right.
to go further.
Thank you.
We need a motion to close the hearing?
Yes.
Make a motion to close the hearing?
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you for coming in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah, I did, yep.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have vote to approve the proposed meeting schedule. I think the only change was the January dates, correct, David? We moved to the 2nd and 4th instead of the 1st and 3rd Wednesday?
That is correct, just to accommodate because of the way January 1st is, but other than that, it'll be the 1st and 3rd every other month.
Okay, is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion subject to change, because sometimes we have to change. I'll make a motion out of effect.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Approve meeting minutes of October 17th?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Accept and review meeting minutes of November 7th and November 14th.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Act on resignation of Patricia Sherman, Council on Aging Board.
Motion to accept the request and send a letter of thanks.
Okay. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And vote on appointment of Jason Ross for rent control. Jason's here, if you'd just like to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Jason Ross. I work at the Massachusetts State House as the Legislative Director for State Representative for the 18th Essex District. I'm applying to be on Rent Control Board because I just want to get more involved in the community. I think that my experience at Bridgewater State University studying political science, but I had a concentration in public administration, so we really focused on local issues. I really think I have a lot to bring to the table. I currently serve on the Cable Access Television Committee, so I am currently involved in the town, and I would just like to expand.
Thank you, Jason. and
Thank you.
Thank you for volunteering. Is there a motion to appoint?
Yeah, motion to appoint.
Second? All in favor?
Aye. Good luck.
And there, for anyone watching, there are still openings on the rent control if anyone is
We gotta
interested.
go and get sworn in. Town clerk?
Yes.
No, not now.
Starting
I-
on.
I think she-
When she's there.
Starting on now.
Yeah.
Okay. The senior tax work-off. David, do you mind just briefly explaining that for those watching?
Sure. So what we do is that we vote at town meeting on abatements on behalf of seniors. And so what they're able to do is they take advantage of this program. They can work up to the equivalent of $825 per year. We allow up to $30,250 per year in the aggregate. And so somebody who is 60 years and older that owns a house in West Bridgewater can work the required hours. They're at the minimum, they're required by law to work at the minimum wage. So whatever the minimum wage is in Massachusetts, that's the rate of pay. And then instead of receiving a check, what they do is they get the equivalent of that off of their tax bill at the end of the year. And so on an annual basis, you reapprove the policy for the ensuing year, and this is the same policy as last year.
Thank you, David. Is there a motion to accept the 2019 policy?
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Neil.
Please. Dave, on that, that's a good program, right?
Yeah, it's a great program.
And as the minimum wage continues to go up, say to $15 an hour, that would flex, so there'll be less people eligible for it. Did you say it's only $30,000 a year out of the pool?
Correct.
Would
Yes.
you be raising that up, like say maybe 35, 40, so
Yep.
more people down the road can get in on it?
Last year, we did that, correct? with
We
minimum
did.
wage allowance?
So when I sat here, we were only at 26,000 in the aggregate. So as minimum wage increases, sitting with the Elder Services Director and looking at our capacity to be able to continue the program, we have incrementally increased that every single year. So that way people, the same number of people can participate as the hourly rate increases.
And they don't get paid, right? This just comes off the tax bill.
That is correct.
Now, are they covered under insurance if they get hurt while they're working and things like that?
They have.
All right.
Is there a motion to accept the
Yeah.
policy?
Motion to accept the senior citizen property work abatement program policy.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Discussion on recreational space. So I had asked, or I had put this on the agenda. I had gotten a few calls, primarily from parents. I know David has as well. People interested in seeing what we can do to increase recreational space, specifically athletic fields. So what I thought we could do is put together a committee that could study what currently exists and provide options of where we could go in the future. If you go to the next slide, I just put very high level, the 4 questions it would answer. What do we need? Where would these fields go? How much does it cost? And how do we pay for it? And the next slide is the number, or is the people or delegates from committees who would be participants on the committee. So this committee would come together and try to answer these questions and put together a plan going forward on how we can try to improve the recreational fields.
And Mr. Chairman, the only thing I do want to let you know is that my understanding is that a couple of people are expecting to show up tonight from the associations to speak on this. However, we had anticipated the tax hearing to go a little bit later, so they may not be here for another 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay. All right, we'll move along then to see if they come, we can come back to it. All right, vote on annual liquor license renewals. Okay. I'll read all of them aloud first. So the Samoset Rod and Gun Club, we will not be voting on tonight. We will be voting on next time when Denise is here. So the ones to vote on tonight are Frida's, Yangtze, Canoe Club Ballroom, Jesse's Liquors, Macy's Liquors, Hockomock Liquors, Town Line General Store, Riverbend Country Club, Petrucci's, The Corner Market, Boston Tavern, Hardy Catering, Chili's, Crystal's Kitchen, Atina Asian Bistro, Bridgewater Quick Stop, Narrow Hookah Lounge, Grand Slam, Nico Bar and Grill, Barrett's Ale House, La Dessa, and New York Pizza. And I believe all those applications are in and all set?
Yes.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve those licenses?
Motion to approve the license is read.
And again, just please make the vote subject to final inspections and any outstanding documents.
That's
we may
correct.
And I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
ABCC seasonal population increase estimate. David, did you want to speak to this?
Sure, ABCC asks us to do it every year because as many people may not be aware, Liquor is still regulated through a quota system in the state of Massachusetts. That's why every city and town only receives so many. Based on the fact that our population is below 10,000, we get the minimum number allocated to us. However, there is a carve-out in statute that if you did receive or you had a period of the season that you exceeded 10,000, you could use that as a pretense to increase your quota. So for example, communities that are only 6,000 or 7,000 down the Cape can actually get a quota based on 20 or 30,000 if they have seasonal increases. We don't. We do this every year. We state that we don't have a seasonal increase because we obviously don't. So all you're doing is voting to sign this, and we'll send it off on the board's behalf.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Warwick Boys Foundation has requested to sell Christmas trees and wreaths. I'd ask that we approve that and waive any fees. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion as that.
Second.
Request annually every year.
All in favor?
Aye.
And next we have vote on road patch policy. David, I know that you worked with the water department and highway and DPW on this to establish a way of more efficiently getting patching done. Do you want to briefly explain that?
Sure. You're absolutely correct. There's always been this informal agreement between the DPW and the water department. However, as personalities change and every once in a while something doesn't really go according to plan, I mean, that's just the way life is. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that there was something in writing so everybody was aware as to what the responsibility of the water department was and the highway department. You know, technically, again, the roads belong to the DPW department. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, if there's a water leak and the water department has to go out and patch the road, they can't call in our highway department to fix it. So they have to patch the road. So the question is, if they don't do a good job, is the highway department then responsible for it, say, 2 weeks later? Right? And the water department does overall do a really good job, but mistakes happen. So you'll see the key in this is that in line 1, second sentence, is that the water department will own the patch for 1 year. So now it has been memorialized that if the water department does do a patch and there are future issues with it sinking, the water department will come out and they will fix it. After 1 year, if they've done a nice job and it's stuck, and if it starts to sink after 1 year, the highway department will handle it because, again, you know, over time, water does get inside the ground. So in the end, this has already been signed by the water commissioners, and I'm asking the Board of Selectmen to sign it as well, and that way everybody is aware as to what the policy is.
Anthony, can I ask something on that?
Go ahead, Neil.
The water department, I know they dig up when the pipe breaks and things like that. And asphalt is by the highway department. So if they're working at night and they repair it, why can't the highway department come in the morning and patch it, do it the way they're being trained and how they're supposed to do? They have all the right equipment, and then that way you won't have the problems down the road.
Yeah, so this, no, Neil, it's a legitimate question because it's one of the concerns that we had to address. The issue is this: it happens at 2 o'clock in the morning. The highway department comes at 6:30. What happens for those 4.5 hours? You put cones out there, you put a metal plate out there, somebody doesn't do it right, somebody hits it, you know, whatever the case might be. So this has been a long-standing tradition from the water department to fill in the hole, and then it's a matter of who owns it and for how long. So this is what this was really addressing. It wasn't changing anything that is already occurring.
I'm just saying, if you're gonna do it with the people with the talent, the know the knowledge how to fix it, just have them do it, even if you have to put a cone there or a plate. In my opinion, I don't know their argument, but I just say, just do it right once, you don't have to keep running back and forth.
Yeah, I think, and I will just say that if Mr. Kruger was here representing the water department, he would tell you that they do a pretty good job patching, almost to the equivalent of the highway department, so.
The sun's out right now, unbelievable.
So, just telling you that. In the end, this is what has been the long-standing tradition in town. We want to make sure that there is no questions as to what it is. It doesn't mean it can't be changed, but this is what it's been current, and so all we're doing is we're codifying what has been the current policy.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the policy?
Move to accept the policy.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, public comment period. Anyone have anything out there? Go ahead, Neil.
When we voted on the 3/4 meal tax, correct? for the meals.
Yep.
And when I go out to restaurants, I see it combined with the state tax and with ours. I thought we're always gonna keep it separate. So then I look at my bill, I like to just break down, see what I'm paying for state
So-
and,
My understanding is the DOR is responsible for then paying it back to the town. I think we get something like 300,000 a year.
No, I'm not saying that, Anthony, I'm saying, when I get my
When you-
receipt, after I pay it, I like to see what I paid, how much I paid for, and it says state tax, and they combine the 0.75% in with the state tax. It's supposed to be separate, so you know, it might be 50 cents, it might be 75. I just thought we're gonna keep it separate, not just on the bill, how it comes into the town, that's a whole, I'm not talking about that.
Honestly, I'm not, do you know? I'm not
Yeah,
sure if
no,
it was
just-
supposed to be that separate.
The state of Massachusetts has a vendor, or probably a set of vendors, but they have a vendor because you have to go in and pre-program all the computers for that. So if it is all being grouped into one line, that's just because that's the way the state's set up with the vendor. We don't really have any control over
And
it.
the restaurant tax collected, if you wanted to, like,
Well, if they're all doing it the same way, it's gotta be, it had to have been approved by the DOR. If, just one thing I would ask though, Neil, is that if you do visit two at different establishments and for whatever reason they're doing it differently, let me know because then I can reach out to the DOR. It should be consistent.
because I know some towns I go to, they have it broken down. They'll tell you, but I'm not, if it's not, it's just my, it's no worth, it's not jumping out a window with, but I'm just saying, if maybe say this is how it's supposed to be, how we agreed to, but if it's deal well, that's the way it is, or whatever you said, that says it's how it has to be. That's all, no big deal.
Thank you.
And one other thing, Anthony, early voter registration now, it puts a lot of time in now, I know the clerks do, they do a lot of work, and I believe every employee in this town does a good job. I really do. We come in here, they treat you with respect and everything. But if you're gonna put in a lot of hours to work, they should be compensated. Because I know when you do, like, next election, the presidential election, you're gonna see a lot of people voting. And that early voter registration, we never heard of that before, till how long ago? I think if they're gonna work like Ann, the ladies down there, and the men, whoever get involved in that early voter registration, they should be monetary compensated, my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I see what you're saying. Annie's in a kind of a predicament the way that she's elected as opposed to
Yeah, but this
an
is
appointed employee.
I don't even
but-
think you up, but I know the salary, but when this something comes in, you gotta look at it, hey, I'm not doing 5 hours, I'm doing like, and she hasn't said anything to me, I talked to other people from other towns on their election, but I'm just saying, if you're putting in a lot of hours, 15, 20 hours, not being compensated, I mean, charity's nice, but how far do you, when do you draw the line?
No, they did put in a lot of hours and they did do a great job.
So if we can think of something, I don't know, that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Neil. Anyone else? Nope. Okay, town administrator's report, David.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, first on the report is that I received in on November 21st, excuse me, I received in by an email an open meeting law complaint in reference to the November 14th Board of Selectmen meeting. Basically, what the complaint alleges is that on the November 14th meeting, we had discussed the alcohol policy, and the agenda said alcohol policy. It did not say what we're going to do in reference to the alcohol policy, i.e. vote on it. So, with that said, what the complaint is requesting is that because we didn't offer enough specificity as to what the actions of the board was attempted to be or expected to be, is that they would nullify the vote on the November 14th meeting, that they would hold another hearing on the amendments to the policy, and they would include prior notice to all license holders, and that they would re-vote on the revisions to the policy following properly noticed hearing. Now, I've spoken to legal counsel about it, and I believe that we provide proper notice. However, there's no sense in arguing. It's a couple of words. I mean, the intent is, let's vote on the policy. So that's why I placed it under my report, because under the law, I have to disclose it to the board. I have to also provide a written notice back to the person who made the complaint along to the Attorney General's office. The board has the right to be able to write it themselves or to delegate me to do it, which in the past you've done, so I would ask you to do that. And then in order to cure the issue, my feeling is that what we do is that you just re-vote on it. We place it on the agenda, which is what I did. It's B, vote on proposed amended alcohol policy and rules and regulations for liquor license holders in the town of West Bridgewater. I think that is very clear as to what the intent of the board is to do. So I think that by placing it on here is that if the board is so inclined, is that what you would do is that you would re-vote on the proposed amended policy that should cure the original concern that there was not proper posting on the meeting. To the request to hold a hearing on revisions and amendments by including prior notice to all license holders, that is not an actual open meeting law complaint. That is somebody that I know that was concerns that was raised in the past. The board has the right to decide to table this and to elicit that input, or to choose not to take the input and then vote on it if that's what you would like. And what I would say is that if you are going to re-vote on it tonight, is that you would just state for the record that the vote from November 14th has been nullified and that you are re-voting on the proposed policy this evening.
Okay, so first, we need a motion to allow David to respond to the complaint. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then up next, we have the actual vote on the
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman?
policy. Go
Are
ahead.
you willing to take a comment from the floor?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to take exception to the characterization of, let's not argue, it's just a few words. The open meeting law is established to ensure transparency and communication for deliberations that a board may take. The agenda simply stated alcohol policy. That provided no notice to the public of what was going to happen, what would be discussed, what would be voted on. It was simply an adjective and a noun. It had absolutely no meaning to the public. So I just wanted to go on record stating that and taking exception to the characterization. As for the request to provide more information to the license holders who have a vested interest in their licenses, as we discussed previously, an actual hearing was held the last time revisions were made to this, and Eldon will remember that point. To do it in this fashion without engaging the stakeholders, I think is a mistake, and I'm on record prior and I'm on record tonight as that. So,
Okay, thank you. Okay, Eldon, would you like to make a motion to nullify the vote on
Well, I
November 14th?
just don't want to get in conflict with this on any kind of vote. I know the next thing coming up, we're gonna be discussing the regulations of that. Does that have an effect on the other also?
Yep.
Huh?
So it was brought to my attention.
So I don't know how I can vote on this if and certainly I have something to contribute in the next, and maybe you can discuss the next one, and then we can go to that. And delay that vote on that until we get to the next.
Yep, so, Selectman Marrero, what he is referring to, just for edification to the public, is that it was brought to my attention that there was a potential ethics issue where Selectman Marrero sits on the board of directors for the Samoset Rod and Gun Club. Quite frankly, I didn't even know that at the last meeting, but you're the current chairman there. And so it was brought to my attention that under Chapter 268A, which is the ethics law, is that if you are a director of an organization, whether it's private or not private, profit or not profit, is that you are unable to vote on any matter particular to that organization or one that would potentially compete with that organization. So on first blush, it seemed pretty simple and straightforward. So what I did is that knowing that Denise was not going to be here tonight and making sure that I provided as much information to the board as possible, is that I also elicited feedback from town council. Town council has reviewed it and also reviewed an ethics decision from 1987 specific to somebody who was a board of director in a club establishment, a private club similar to Samoset, and offered the opinion that as long as you provide the proper disclosure of notice, and that you also state as to whether or not you could act impartially or not, is that you would have the option to be able to vote on it. Now, that's a personal choice and a personal preference. If you believe that you can vote in that manner, you do. If you believe that you can't, you are under no obligation to do so.
Okay, and I have a thing here that I'll read at this time. The Board of Selectmen meeting, December 5th, 2018. Pertaining to the deliberation and discussion of proposed changes alcohol policy presently sitting before the board for its review. 1, I'm a member of the Samoset Rod and Gun Club and serve as chairman of the board of directors. 2, I am basing my evaluation on the vote and the merit of the proposed changes in alcohol policy and using the same objection standards which I apply to other proposed changes in town policy. 3, after taking a vote, I will provide those disclosures to the town clerk. Eldon Marrero, Vice Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, which I will sign.
Okay, Eldon, so is there a motion for the policy in front of us, or did you have anything further to discuss on the policy?
I don't have anything further to discuss. I'm just fully disclosing what my role is over there.
So-
And now, we have it in writing from the town council.
Yep, so I have an informal email at this point because he had, quite frankly, I was away this past week, and so I received it an hour before the meeting. So he is going to give me a formal memo, but I had a verbal conversation with him, and he also provided me an email as well, and informed me that if you feel comfortable making those disclosures, and you believe in the disclosures that you made, then you are able to take that vote. Seeing that you did, you would be able to vote on the alcohol policy, and also, because I want to cure any issues potentially raised in the open meeting law complaint, and that we're taking the vote tonight, that what I would do is I would ask the formal vote to say that you are nullifying the vote of November 14th, 2018, and that you are re-voting on the proposed amendments on December 5th, and then it will still take effect on January 18th as the original motion had been passed.
I think I'm going to abstain the vote until I get that thing in writing signed by the town council.
Okay, in that case, since we can't take a vote, David, I'd ask that you would nullify the vote and not send out the policy that was voted on the 14th.
So what that means then is that I will place this on the agenda for next meeting as well.
Yes.
And I will also send something off to the Attorney General's office, inform them as to where we are, because by law, I'm supposed to cure the issue by December 13th. Our next meeting is December 19th, but I'm sure based on the situation, I provide everything in writing, then we'll just redo everything on December 19th. Unless you have any objections, John?
Question from the floor.
Go ahead, John.
If I just heard correctly, you nullified a vote of the board without
I
taking a vote
didn't.
of the board?
I guess I don't technically have the authority to nullify it, but I'm instructing David not to send out the policy
Okay,
to any establishments.
but not to nullify the previous?
We can't nullify it right now.
Okay.
Eldon can't vote, Denise
Just
isn't
keep the
here.
record there.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the spirit is, do not implement what was voted.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. David?
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. 2004 ambulance, there was a third ambulance that the previous chief thought that would be important to keep on in its fleet, just in case we ever need an additional ambulance. The new chief doesn't see that as a necessary expense, and as a result is requesting that we remove it from the fleet. I have no objection as procurement manager. I have no objection to it. It's my responsibility then to sell it off. However, it does have to be determined to be a surplus vehicle according to Board of Selectmen policy, and so therefore I'm looking for that vote.
I'll make a motion to determine as a surplus vehicle.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Um, uh,
Go ahead, Neil.
How, am I in order by asking, or?
Yeah, go ahead,
I
Neil.
don't want to interrupt you, but why did one want 3 and this one wants 2?
Just a personal preference. Quite frankly, it wasn't used that often, so we incurred some, I'm sorry?
So it's a brand new ambulance?
No, it's 2004. So quite frankly, we incurred expenses because, as anyone might know, if you let a vehicle just sit and might not move for 3 months, 6 months, before you know it, you're redoing brake lines or whatever else, so.
And for a long time, it wasn't even stored here. It was stored in Easton.
We
right?
requested a favor to store it indoors in Easton. Next is that just honoring the policy of the board, there was a request from the Spanish Honor Society, which comes in annually to can at the transfer station. They did this past Saturday on December 1st. I had already signed the policy, and per the policy is to inform the board at its next meeting. Also, 188 Matfield Street, which was taken under tax title many years ago, we are now going to follow the the process, and there is now going to be a public auction on December 12th at 3 p.m. So again, just informing the board of that.
But I have a question on that. Does that include back taxes too, when that thing is brought up at an auction?
It'll just be the highest bid. So right now, we will inform the auctioneer as to what the minimum amount that the town was willing to accept. And that, quite frankly, by statute, is the responsibility of the treasurer. So I'll work with the treasurer in determining as to what we think the appropriate amount would be. It can't be a hard and fast rule, because, for example, if the back taxes on this was $750,000, it's not going to sell for $750,000. So we will look to determine as to how much we think that the minimum bid should be. Hopefully, it'll exceed that. In my experience in the past, they always have. But we will look to see as to what the back taxes are. And obviously, whatever monies come in goes directly into the account and makes up for the lost back taxes. And the last one is just a thank you letter. Every single year, the turkey trot is always run here, and it's a nice event. It grows every single year. This year, they had their best year, and they raised about $1,600 that went to the West Bridgewater Food Pantry. I just thought that since it was on public roads and they had such a nice turnout, that it would just be wise to inform the public and let the board know that, sometimes people think that approving these things are a little bit silly, but if we can raise $1,600 for the food pantry in town, I think that's a great event, and they did a nice job.
Okay, thank you, David.
You're welcome.
All right, so we'll go back to the recreational space discussion. So I know a number of people have joined us, so before you got here, I just briefly went over what we were looking to do. So I know I've gotten a few inquiries from a number of residents about fields. I know David has as well. So I put together a very brief plan on what we need to do, and I'd like to establish a committee. So answer these very broad questions. What do we need? Where does it go? How much does it cost, and how do we pay for it? And then the next slide is the committee members. So there'd be someone from the Board of Selectmen, the town administrator, the athletic director, someone from the YA, YFA, boosters, the DPW director, and the conservation agent, because they have the best understanding of available land and where things could and couldn't go, along with someone from the finance committee to hopefully help with the how do we pay for it question. So that is where I think we should go with this, try to develop a plan. Hopefully this committee can come together quickly. I didn't know if anyone else out there wanted to say anything.
I'll say hi real quick. So I'm here today. I'm Jeff Ryan. I'm Vice President of the Boosters. We have somebody from football. We have a couple of people. We have an overlap in the middle here with football and YAA. But I don't want to speak for all three organizations, but I think all three organizations are here willingly and happily to try to solve this problem.
Yeah, thank you.
As it becomes more and more obvious, especially on a nice waning, rainy, wet season that we've had. We sort of peeled the Band-Aid back.
All right, sounds good. So if this works for everyone, it seems like it does. I'd like to go ahead and establish this committee to meet and discuss the future plan.
It's something needed for quite a while, that we're running out of space, and because it's rain over there next to the Howard School, is most of the time you can't even use it, it's just unreal, the drainage and everything else, and it's certainly good to venture into that, and you have my support.
And I can speak for boosters. We've already voted to do this.
Okay.
In a very broad sense, but
Yeah.
we've moved forward.
I'm Greg Stipration, President of the YA. We voted on it, or we spoke about it at our last meeting, and have the full support of that vote as well.
Great.
I'm Christina Merrill, I'm the president of West Bridgewater Youth Football and Cheer, and we spoke about it at our last meeting, and everybody was gung ho for this, so.
Great, sounds good.
I'm Glenn Turner. I'm kind of on the
both places here, and I'm here in support of both football and the YEA in regards to this.
Awesome. Thank you, and thank you guys for coming. And David will reach out to get the names of who will be on it. I'm not sure if it will be you guys sitting in the room or who the right people are to join this committee.
Just real broad question, when do you think when do we need that person in place by?
I mean, with it being the holidays, we probably won't start on January or sometime in January, maybe. All right. David, do we need a vote to establish a committee like this, or?
You know, it's not gonna hurt if you wanna take that vote, that's fine.
Make a motion to establish a committee.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
All right.
Okay. Thank you all for coming in.
Thank you, thanks for your time.
And that's it for the agenda, unless there's anything else from anyone.
Connie was here, I don't know if you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
That's the tax rate for fiscal 19, that's voted on.
Thank you.
And the first part of that
I think it's.
is the LA 5, which is what you're authorizing,
Okay.
of the vote of 1.38, and that you've been informed of the levy limit.
Okay, thank you,
All right,
John.
thank you.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.